might have noticed that Noel and I are dressed very similar today. We both have on a black suit, black shoes, white shirt, and Christmas tie. Usually Sandy picks out my clothes for me, and certainly my tie, but I did it all myself this morning. And I went in and said, "See, I dressed myself." She said, "Aren't you a big boy?"
Great man, think alike.
Yes. I was thinking earlier, we stood for prayer this morning. It reminded me, a long time ago, back before I even met Sandy, I was living in St. Louis for a little while. And at the church there, it was the custom you always stood up for prayer. But I remember one morning in the announcements, there was one of the members there that was in critical condition. There were a lot of, well, not a lot maybe, but at least a few other big important things going on. And I remember when, I think it was one of the elders got up to pray, he said, "Y'all need to sit down. We got a lot to pray about today." And I appreciated that. And I appreciate that this church family here is a family of prayer who believes in prayer, and certainly very thankful that God indeed listens to our prayers and responds so often, so favorably. It happened 7 years ago, early one Friday morning in Aurora, Colorado, at a midnight showing of the movie The Dark Knight Rises. 70 people were injured in the attack. Several critically injured. 12 of them were killed. I remember later that afternoon watching and listening to Neil Cavuto talk about this event on Fox News. And I thought what he shared was quite meaningful. And I want to share those words with you now. He said this: "Sometimes life just stops. The arguing over politics, maybe the arguing period. All that is normally part of the drama of life, usurped by something otherwise mundane in life. The stuff that we pretty much take for granted in life, the stuff we don't think about, the stuff we don't much fuss or worry about, like going to a theater, watching a movie, and when it's done, leaving the theater and talking about that movie. But we all know now that familiar routine was broken in Colorado overnight. And it's all anyone's been talking about since. For good reason, we just can't fathom a reason. How people can go to a movie theater and some of them never come out of that theater alive. It's why financial channels joined news channels going wall to wall on this story. And even traders on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange couldn't stop watching news reports on this story. Folks that normally are all consumed with worldliness and getting rich in life suddenly were consumed by something much more important. We're reminded yet again, there are no guarantees in life or ways to explain the senselessness of some things in life. The child shot at point blank range, and we wonder why. The couple who thought it would be fun to see a midnight showing of a movie for the first time in their life, now dead, and we wonder why. I guess none of my insights are profound today. Just a business anchor musing about the routine business of life upended today. It was almost as if those in business didn't know what to do today, because none of what they did or usually obsessed over mattered today, not even to them. No one cared much about all the spending in Washington or the latest saber rattling in Iran, just about what happened in an otherwise nondescript movie complex in Aurora, Colorado, reminding us yet again to take nothing for granted in life, including life itself. Some of you might remember hearing about another shooting that took place at a shopping mall in Toronto, Canada, just a few weeks prior to the one in Colorado. 2 people were killed and several others injured. One person who was there but avoided injury was a 24-year-old woman, a journalist and sportscaster named Jessica Gawi. And after that event, Jessica blogged at length about the experience and how it affected her. She wrote, "I was shown how fragile life was on Saturday. I saw the terror on bystanders' faces. I saw the victims of a senseless crime. I saw lives change. I was reminded that we don't know when or where our time on earth will end, when or where we will breathe our last breath." She said, "I say all the time that every moment that we have to live our life is a blessing. So often I have found myself taking it for granted. Every hug from a family member, every laugh we share with friends, even the times of solitude, are all blessings. Every second of every day is a gift. After Saturday evening, I know I truly understand how blessed I am for each second I am given." Less than 7 weeks after she wrote those words, Jessica Gawi went into a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, and she did not come out alive. This is a map showing some of the mass shootings in the U.S. that have taken place this past year. And at first I thought I would show you a list of all of those different incidents, but then I looked at the list. Since January 1, 2019, there have been 403 such incidents, 471 deaths, 1,622 injured. And by the way, that includes what happened in Pearl Harbor at the Naval Shipyard just this past Wednesday. And just to be clear, this is not intended to be an assault on assault weapons or weapons of any kind. Every one of those incidents happened because a person made a really bad decision to hurt people. But here's why I share this with you this morning. Every time one of these horrible events occur, people are naturally led to think about just how precious life really is, how there is nothing more important and valuable than life itself. But actually, there is something even more valuable than your life. And the Bible tells us what that is. In Matthew 16, verse 26, Jesus himself told us, "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses his soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul?" The scripture reading that Noel read for us just a little while ago. Is there anything really more valuable than your eternal soul? Is there anything that you could gain in this world that would be so great that it would be worth losing your soul for it? Any moment of pleasure that was so satisfying that you would be willing to give up your soul for it? Now, I'm pretty sure as you sit here in church, in a worship service on a Sunday morning, you're pretty sure, of course, my soul is the most important thing to me, and I would never willingly choose to give up my soul for anything in this world. But what about tomorrow and the rest of the week as you're out there in the world with all of its temptations? This morning I urge you to think seriously about the condition of your soul and how much is your soul really worth to you. 2 points for us to consider. And you're going to have a hard time seeing this because the background got changed from what it was originally. So white text on white background means you're going to have to look really close or listen really well. Number one, are you in danger of exchanging your soul for sin and the pleasures of this world? There are some things, you know this, there are some things that people in the world do that Christians have no business being a part of whatsoever. And how sad it would be for you to give up the salvation of your soul in order to obtain something worth far less. Are you in danger of doing that? Of doing what Jesus warned about? Of doing what so many passages in the Bible warn about? For instance, 2 Timothy chapter 3. And I'm going to quit changing this since it may mostly not be able to be seen. 2 Timothy 3, 4 and 5 talks about people who are lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, holding to a form of godliness, although they are denying its power. Another translation says it this way about people: they will act religious, but they reject the power that could make them godly. James 5 and verse 5 says, you have lived luxuriously on the earth and led a life of wanton pleasure, of self-indulgence, or satisfying every desire. He said, you have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. So many are doing that. They're filling their lives with those kinds of sinful things, the pleasures of this world. Titus 2 and verse 12 says we should deny ungodliness and worldly desires, and instead we should live sensibly, righteously, and godly in this present world. And then Peter said this, 1 Peter chapter 4, verse 1 through 3. Therefore, since Christ has suffered in the flesh, arm yourselves also with the same purpose. Because he who has suffered in the flesh has ceased from sin, so as to live the rest of the time in the flesh, no longer for the lusts of men, but for the will of God. And I like this next part. He says, for the time already past is sufficient for you to have carried out the desire of the Gentiles, having pursued a course of sensuality, lust, drunkenness, carousing, drinking parties, and abominable idolatries. In other words, he says, you've already wasted enough time doing that. You and I, when we give in to temptation, when we fill our lives with sin, we are certainly wasting our time. Peter says you've already wasted enough time doing that. You've got to get rid of that in your life. Instead of filling our lives with sin, we need to be like Moses in Hebrews chapter 11. We read about Moses who chose something much more valuable. Hebrews 11, verse 24 through 26. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking forward to his reward. Can you and I do that? Realize what we have ahead of us. turn away from the things of this world and realize how important it is that we live for God and look forward to our eternal reward. Sin, I know that sin so often is fun. It'll satisfy some urge. Usually it will feel good at least right then, or else there wouldn't be so many sinners. But the Bible clearly teaches that many will be lost forever in hell because they exchanged their soul for the fleeting pleasures of sin. And I ask you this morning, are you doing that? Are you in danger of exchanging your soul for sin and the pleasures of this world? I urge you to do all that you can to get rid of all those sinful things that are indeed a danger to your soul. There's a second question for us to consider. Number 2, are you in danger of exchanging your soul for the everyday cares and things of this world? You don't have to fill your life with sinful pleasures to find yourself in danger of losing your soul. For some folks, Satan is content to lead you astray just by the cares and the things of this world, things that in and of themselves and in normal circumstances may not be sinful at all. But does this sound familiar? You're just so busy, so wrapped up in the day-to-day activities of life, going to work, going to school, going to those exciting PTA meetings, going to ball games, all those chores, cleaning house and working in the garage and painting that bedroom, working on the car, mowing the yard, time spent with family and going on trips and vacation, and all these things are fine. But some folks get so busy with these kinds of everyday things that there's little time left over for spiritual things. Look with me at Luke chapter 10. And you will probably remember this story, Luke 10, about Mary and Martha and the time that Jesus visited with them. Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 38. Now, as they were traveling along, Jesus entered a certain village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. And she had a sister named Mary, who, moreover, was listening to the Lord's word, seated at his feet. But Martha was distracted with all her preparations, and she came up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the serving alone? Then tell her to help me. But the Lord answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and bothered about so many things, but only a few things are necessary, really only one. He said, for Mary has chosen the good part, which shall not be taken away from her. Mary chose to devote her time right then to just being with Jesus. You know, a lot of people have great intentions and things they want to do. Many determine they're going to start spending more time with the Lord like Mary did. They're going to devote themselves to gathering more with their church family, dedicating themselves to more spiritual things, spending more time in prayer, in Bible reading and study, doing more in service to other people, telling others the good news about Jesus. Many have great intentions, and someday they're going to do all that. But right now, they're just too busy. And the cares and the things of this world are just important enough to get in the way of making their relationship with the Lord truly the most important thing in their life. And so they exchange their soul for the everyday cares and things of this world. And I ask you again this morning, are you in danger of doing that? Look with me at 1 John chapter 2. 1 John chapter 2, a familiar passage here, verse 15 through 17. Look at it in your Bible. I'm going to read it from a different translation than I normally would. Do not love this world, nor the things it offers you. For when you love the world, you do not have the love of the Father in you. For the world offers only a craving for physical pleasure, a craving for everything we see, and pride in our achievements and possessions. These are not from the Father, but are from this world. And this world is fading away, along with everything that people crave. But anyone who does what pleases God will live forever. So how much is your soul worth to you? How important is it really to you? And let me say this just to make sure you understand the gravity of the situation. Jesus warned about the tragedy of exchanging your soul for something else. This idea of exchange means exactly that. You are choosing to give up one thing in order to obtain something else, because you can't have both. Jesus said you cannot serve two masters. You have to decide. You cannot have a life that is focused on the cares and the things and the sinful pleasures of this world and inherit eternal life as well. You can't have both. You have to make a choice. So this morning, what will it be? As the verse says, will you set your affection on things above? Or will it be on the things of this world? Which do you choose? In Milan, there is a cathedral. It is overwhelming in its size. It is overwhelming in extravagance. It is said that 40,000 people can fit inside that enormous structure. Construction began on that building in the year 1386. Work continued for almost 6 centuries, with some of the final details not being completed until 1965. I have read that one of the unique things about that cathedral is that it has a particular set of 3 doors. And over each door is an arch with a symbol and an inscription. Over the first door, there are roses. And it says, that which pleases is but for a moment. Over the second door, there are thorns. And it says, that which troubles is but for a moment. Over the third door, there is a cross. And it says, that alone is important, which endures forever. What is most important in your life? I hope this morning you realize there is nothing more valuable, nothing more important than your eternal soul. Are you willing to exchange that for anything of this world, any sin, any pleasure, any care or thing of this world? Jesus once said, where your treasure is, there will your heart be also. Where is your heart this morning? Have you given your heart to the Lord? Is your life focused all on Him above everything else? It may be even this morning you need to determine to make some changes in your life. Maybe you've never given your heart to the Lord by being baptized into Christ to become a child of God. Why are you waiting? Why? He wants so much for you to come to Him. It may be even we need to pray together about something this morning. If you need to come, won't you come as together we stand and sing.